Hey everyone, my name is Penny Zenker, and it's time to reset. This podcast goes beyond just navigating change. It's about new ways of thinking about how you can approach challenges, how you can shift your mindset when needed, create some space and grace for yourself so that you can rethink, recharge, and reprioritize when and where needed. Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Thank you for hitting play and sharing this next episode with me. It's time to reset. Hello, my name is Penny Zenker, and this is Take Back Time. I'm excited today to talk once again about the sort of hybrid world that we live in. We're going to talk about productivity for hybrid workforces and the culture and aspects of that. And I'm super excited to have Rob Buffington with us. He's an experienced consultant in the HOA management space, and he brings a wealth of experience and knowledge to management companies and mid-sized businesses that struggle with vendor services, staffing, bookkeeping, and overall management. And basically, Rob is running a hybrid organization, and he's also helping provide staffing for many organizations. So he's really not only doing it in his own company, but he's seeing what's happening in other companies. So that's why he's going to be such a valuable resource for all of you today. So Rob, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So how long have you been dealing with, I think hybrid workforce for you or remote workforce is not a new thing since 2020. Is that correct?
No, we started doing it in 2017, I want to say. So we did it before COVID. We never intended to start a staffing company. We did it for our own businesses. Right now, we have 7 companies and they're all majority remote staff. And then when COVID hit, we realized that this is not just something we do to help other businesses, but this is a company in its own right that came about.
That's great. So you learned before everybody else. You went through some of the growing pains, perhaps, of having a remote workforce and how to make that work. So I'm just curious, what shifted in your culture when you did this? What shifted and how did you manage that cultural shift or direct that cultural shift to get the result that you wanted and create the culture you wanted?
Well, it definitely is an adjustment. And I think a lot of people out there expect it to be almost like a software, like, hey, I'm going to do this and everything's miraculously going to be better. And it's like a lot of things, you put the effort in, just like a software, ironically. If you were to launch a major software like Salesforce without prepping and implementation and follow-up, you would be disappointed there too. We started with our lower level positions, which is what we always recommend. And one of the great things for us is it allowed us to fill positions cheaper because we were going nearshoring. And we did find that we had to work a little harder to learn about people, to communicate. It became possible to have somebody on staff for several weeks or even months without having a really meaningful conversation if things got busy. So you had to make the effort to sit down and talk with people and get their feedback and learn about them as a person rather than just a little square on a screen.
So what are some tips to do that? Because that can happen. Before you know it, everybody's so busy, and before you know it, months have gone by and there's been no real, as you said, meaningful conversation and connection. So what are some tips? How do you do that?
Treat it like anything. You have to prioritize it. I'm a big believer in objective data. So within the first 30 days, I'm going to have a one-on-one conversation, or weekly, I'm going to meet with this team. We try to do virtual socials on a monthly basis. We find that helps. We send out surveys to employees. We find that really helps understand how they're feeling, stuff like that. And we put the effort in, we put the time in, move to direct questions. When you're on a group call, it can be very easy to just say, let me know if you have any questions. Instead, we go one-on-one and we say, hey, Steve, tell me what you're thinking. What questions, how you feel, that kind of stuff.
So you call people out specifically?
Yeah, not in a hostile way, but just we require cameras on. We don't do that thing where everybody has the camera off and muted and they're doing whatever. It's, hey, we're going to be present. We're going to dive into it.
So you mentioned a lot of different things there. You mentioned surveys, you mentioned virtual socials and regularly scheduled meetings and things like that. I've had people say, we're surveyed to death, or people who have been on socials and said it's just a couple of people who are talking with one another and they just are doing other stuff while they're on the social. They're not really actively socializing. Do you find any of those types of things? And how do you avoid that side of things, is where people they're there, but people aren't really engaging in them or finding them connective?
On the surveys, we try not to do it too often. We do it twice the first week, one of which is just, hey, how did onboarding go? Do you have your benefits? You have your login? You know who to, just that kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
And then it's weekly for the first month and then monthly after that. So we try not to make it too onerous. There's a lot of valuable information.
Okay, that's
For the
helpful, right? To
socials,
understand the best frequency of doing that. And you find that frequency connects people but doesn't overload them.
yeah, and they're not long surveys. I mean, they could be done in 2 minutes probably, but it helps us know. Like one of the questions we added, especially with clients, is, do you know who your supervisor? And you would think that was a really obvious question, but you would be amazed how many remote team members said, I have no idea who I report to. Like, I've got my email, but I don't know who my boss is and I don't know what's going on. It's always evolving.
And wouldn't it be a requirement that they would have contact with their boss in the first?
You would think so.
Okay.
You would think so. But with large companies, they might have an IT guy set them up, and then they would have a group training for all new employees every Monday, stuff like that. And they probably did interact with their boss, but they interacted with 6 different people. So they
Right.
don't know, do I talk
Gotcha.
to this guy or this guy or this guy? Like I have a trainer at my company, but then if somebody reports to me, they might not have even talked to me by the end of the first week, even though they're supposed to work.
Right. So let me dig deeper into that onboarding process, because I know I read some studies that people decide during that onboarding process pretty much whether they're staying with the company or they're not, which I thought was a really interesting thing, that it was something over 60%, 65% of people pretty much knew at that point whether it was going to be something that they were connected to. So that onboarding process is so important. Is there anything else special that you do in your onboarding process that helps people, even though they're remote, to be connected to the organization?
Well, for our remote employees, we have them come in for the first day because we agree that first impression is really important. And aside from paperwork, getting their equipment, we want them to know the team. We want that when something comes up, they've already spoken to the HR manager, they've met the people. So it's not just calling a random number, it's somebody that you've met and interacted with. So we do that. Like I said, we do the
Well, that's not
regular
always
check-ins.
possible, right? That's a challenge, right? When people are living in California and you're in Philadelphia.
Well, that's why we structure it the way we do, is we allow people to work from home, but they have to live within driving distance of one of our offices.
Okay.
So we have offices in 8 states and then 3 countries. So they have to work within driving distance of one of those offices.
Gotcha.
So
And that's a way that you keep people connected because they can come in at any time if they needed to.
Exactly. Yep. We found that it to be kind of a middle ground of, you get all the freedom of working from home, but if you ever have concerns, we're just down the street. You can come in and talk to us.
Gotcha. Anything else on that onboarding process that you think stands out that helps get people acclimated?
Treat it as professionally as possible. It's easy to go out of sight, out of mind with people that are working remotely. But for example, we make sure the computer is set up, everything is bookmarked, the screensaver shows the company logo. It just makes them feel like it's a very professional place to work and not just a side gig. We have a training class. We try to do as much as possible to give them all the information, and we're always evolving. So as soon as something comes up and we make a mistake or we leave something out, it goes into the next onboarding class. So we're always learning how to do it better. We encourage them to follow us on social media. We have newsletters that go out through our HR portal, stuff like that, that really makes them feel connected. So it's just a lot of ongoing touches.
Do you find that you recognize people more, like in those newsletters or in other means, to really have people feel like they matter and show greater appreciation? Do you find that?
Yeah, we do. For example, we'll do monthly spotlights of talking about this employee or that employee. We try to be as social as possible. We have HR generalists that have their dedicated people that they talk to on a regular basis. So it's not just a faceless survey, it's somebody that you talk to on a regular basis and to have a good relationship with.
Mm-hmm. Great. As far as that cultural aspect, what do you do to drive that culture other than what we've talked about? Is there anything else that you do that helps you to create the culture that you want in the organization?
It probably is an obvious statement, but you have to know what your culture is in order to propagate it. You have to know what are your company values, what's important to the company. It's not something that's just done by osmosis. You have to know our 5 key values are going to be this. And, this is what's most important to us. And you have to be able to communicate that. And you don't want to go too far and just make it generic and copy and paste. It has to be real. But at
Right.
the same time, if you haven't defined it ahead of time, employees are never going to pick up on it because maybe you know it, but if
Yeah.
you're not talking to them on a regular basis and it's not front and center, it's going to have a hard time. So our mission statement is put on the wall at our offices. So when people come in, they see it up front and center.
Well, so you just said, how do you make it real? I think that it's a challenge. People not coming to the office, they're not going to see it on the wall. And even if they do see it on the wall, you said that, how do you make it real? Like,
Mhm.
I think so many companies, you're right, you have to know and define what your values are. But how do you make sure that the organization, especially when they're hybrid or they're remote entirely, how do you ensure that people live those values?
For example, charity is one of our core values. Every company I've ever had, it's just been a key tenet of our beliefs. So we will have quarterly work days that each office, we have people in our Guadalajara office, our Mexico City office, we have an Omaha look, all these offices. At least once a quarter, we will have a volunteer work day for a charity that we support. Not just let's go out and do something, but hey, I want you to see what you're working towards because a percentage of profits goes to charities, and the more we make, the more we give. So Guadalajara, we have an orphanage that we've supported for 6 years where I'm on the board of directors, and we invite people to come out and volunteer for a day and say, hey, this is Diego. This is somebody that you've helped support by working at Gordian Staffing. You've helped support this child. So stuff like that. You have to find tangible ways to demonstrate it for people.
Fantastic. So charity seems to be an easy one. What are some of the other ones that you find maybe are a little bit more difficult to really show in reality? And I don't mean when I say easy, forgive me, I think what you're doing is
No,
fantastic.
obvious, tangible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of more obvious as to how you live it, whereas some of the other
Right.
ones might be less obvious or just curious that might be more challenging for you.
Yeah. So, for example, continual development is another one of our values. And so we're working on a learning management system internal that we're always going to be adding new courses to so that if you join us as a customer service rep or something like that, and you want to move up to an office manager position, we have free classes that you can take with us to move up to that position. So basically, it's what do you put your time towards and what do you put your money towards?
You give people and encourage people to take their work time to do those courses, or is that something that they do outside of work time?
Depends on the clients because they're permanently assigned to a client. It is the client's decision whether they want them to work on that, but they do have availability and access to it.
Okay.
But,
Very good.
but as an example, Google, I don't know if they still do it, but for a long time, they encouraged people, because I used to work there when I was in college, they would encourage people to take 8 hours a week and just think of stuff, just whatever. And Gmail actually came out of one of those work products. So that was how they did it, is they put their time and their money, because they were losing productivity hours, towards just think of crazy ideas, come up with something new. Google did that.
Right, all right. I do remember. I don't think that they do it anymore, but I think it's a great way that shows how when you say you value innovation and creativity, that you're giving people time and space to actually live it. So that's a great point. One of the other last points that I want to talk about is when you have a remote workforce, there are a lot of managers and leaders who get nervous and they feel like, how do I know that these people are working? And how do you help to keep a productive workforce when they're all over the place?
One of the things I love to say is, as it relates to monitoring people, you're not paying for 8 hours of the back of somebody's head. You're paying for what they produce during that time. And too many people get really, really focused on, I want to see every second of the day that they're not 5 minutes late or 5 minutes early. And I just like to tell people, like, okay, back up. If somebody could take the same workload and get it done in 2 hours, would that be a good thing? Oh, yeah, that'd be great. Okay. So it's not 8 hours. It's not the time, although you don't want to let people work half days. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But if it's a customer service rep, it's answering 100 phone calls, a missed call percentage of less than 3%, a customer satisfaction rate of 97%. Take the position and translate it into those terms, objective metric terms. If it's an AP clerk, I want 300 invoices coded with an error rate of less than 0.5%. Decide what that is and then build off of that, because that can always be traced and that'll give you a much better idea as to the health of your company.
I'm so glad that you said it the way that you did, because one of the ways I didn't say monitoring, right? So that was one of the things that you brought up. And I think it is so true that effort to try to control people there's a lot of, well, let's monitor how long they're online and all of this kind of stuff, which is focusing on the wrong things. I loved what you said. It's about creating those objective metrics, right? That's where our leadership effort should be going, is working with people to be clear on what those objective metrics are, that they understand what they're working towards and they have a line of sight with their goals and how they add to the value of the organization. And from that, that's the best way, is then you're enabling people to bring creativity to it so they can reach their goals. I love it. So we're coming to the end of our time together. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you would really like to make sure that you make clear?
I would just say that this is, in the nicest way possible, it's not optional for companies. This is the future of the workforce.
Yep.
If a company tries to stay in the office solely, they are going to have a very difficult time getting staff. So it's better to embrace it and find the benefits in it. People like to quote Darwin's survival of the fittest, especially as we're in a difficult time. But I always like to remind people that that theory has nothing to do with strength. It has to do with adaptability. His theory was that those most adaptable to changing circumstances are most likely to survive. And I think that's very true in this scenario. And this is the change of the generation. And so it's not really a question of if you're going to allow this, it's are you going to embrace it, or are you going to be dragged kicking and screaming into the future?
That's right. Figure out how to get good at it. I think that point about adaptability has been around forever. So that's why you see that many of the companies that were leading companies for years did not stay on top. They weren't adaptable. And so therefore they didn't continue with the same level of success. So awesome. Well, tell us how people can reach you before we end the show today.
You can find us online, Gordian Business Solutions on LinkedIn or GordianBusinessSolutions.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Rob Buffington. I'm there as well.
Fantastic. Thank you for being here, Rob.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you all for being here. Let's face it, hybrid and total remote is here to stay. And so I hope you're embracing it. And I hope you're looking for not just best practices, but future practices. What are people successful with today? But keep thinking about where people's needs and desires and behaviors are changing so that you can adapt well into the future and make sure that your organization is thriving and not just surviving. My name is Penny Zenker, and this is Take Back Time. I'll see you in the next episode. Hey, thank you for spending this time with me. It really means a lot. If you're feeling a little off, distracted, overwhelmed, stuck, or just out of sync, remember that's your signal to reset. And that's all it takes, just recognizing one reset moment at a time. So stay tuned for more tips, tools, tricks, stories, strategies, all here on Time to Reset. We'll see you in the next episode.